Welcome to How Stories Heal the Heart and Rewire the Mind. This is going to be a collaborative conversation on healing, storytelling, and how stories shape the subconscious in us and in the next generation. So, my name is Leigh. I am a children's book author and a filmmaker and founder of a production company called Encourage Thought. My mission is to craft narratives that resonate deeply and leave a lasting impact, especially for the next generation. My guest today is Alexandrea Long. She is a trauma therapist, a subconscious explorer, founder of Live Consciously, which is a therapy practice rooted in emotional healing, inner child work, and nervous system repair. So looks like she's having a little trouble. I'll let her take a minute to join again. But together in our conversation we're going to explore how healing can happen through story, even when we're not fully aware that it's happening, because stories speak the language of the subconscious and can access us in places that the mind simply can't. So we'll start with talking about the subconscious. And what I've heard is that, hey, welcome back.
I told you I'm so sorry, Miss Leigh. I'm here, but I did hear you.
Okay, no problem. So I just wanted to talk about starting with the subconscious. Like, what I've heard is that by age 7, our subconscious programming is like already in place. So I was wondering if you could talk about that a little bit, and like, how does it form and why is that important to understand?
Yes. So I can't remember if it was Gabor Mate or not, but I remember hearing this quote, and it says, before we have a chance to tell the world who we are, the world tells us who we are. And so our beliefs are basically programmed. We're not born with them. And so just as you stated, from the age 0 to 7, our brain is basically vibrating in this frequency called theta. And basically theta is like a sponge. All we're doing is observing the energy around us. So from the way dad responds to something, to the amount of stress mom has. Leigh, you can hear me okay perfectly, right?
Yeah. Yep.
To the amount of stress moms have, to the way we're either taught how to deal with our emotions or how we're not taught how to deal with our emotions. Basically, from 0 to 7, our brain is creating its program, its subconscious program. And this is super important because 95% of our actions and behavior are governed by this blueprint that was created before the age of 7. So often when we think we're making conscious decisions, we're really not. We're really operating from these programs, right? So most of our actions, reactions, our self-talk are driven by this early program that we didn't even have a choice in building. And unfortunately, most people are still operating from this unconscious program that was given to us. There's this other quote, can't remember who had this one either, but it said, show me a boy by the age of 7 and I'll show you the man. And so that is legitimately, 0 to 7 is legitimately the most important times of our life.
It's so fascinating.
Yeah.
So we have our subconscious mind that's programmed, through our early childhood experiences. And then we also have trauma, right? That everybody experiences in their life. So I'm wondering if you could define trauma and talk about where it's stored if it's not fully processed.
Yeah. I really love this question, Leigh, because I think many of us have the wrong definition of trauma. So trauma isn't what happened to you. Trauma is what happened to you. Trauma is the result of what happened to you inside of your body, right? And so what I always like to let people know is that trauma just means wound, right? And I'll say that again to make sure I'm saying it correctly. Trauma isn't what happened to you. It's what happened inside of you as a result of what happened to you. Okay? And so I like to just use the word wound because it really tells the true story about what trauma is. So examples of this, I oftentimes get people saying, Miss Alex, I don't trust people. And I'm like, okay, well, that's trauma, right? The world is unsafe. That's trauma. A disconnection from body and emotions. That's trauma. People pleasing, abandonment issues, depression, and anxiety, they're all trauma responses. Peter Levine, the founder of Somatic Experiences, he talks about how trauma is a biological function. It is not a psychological function. So therefore, that means trauma lives within our bodies, right? And when trauma doesn't get processed in the moment, it'll stay stuck in our system until we deal with it. So that can be the next day, or it can be 30 years from now. If we don't process it and deal with it, that incomplete arousal cycle stays stuck within our nervous system. You can't think your way out of trauma. It's not in your logical mind at all. It lives within your body. So healing means just finishing that arousal cycle. And so that can look like movement. Storytelling is what you do. Art, crying, breath work, therapy, anything that sends your system the message that you're safe now. It's okay to feel, and you can release whatever isn't serving you. Mhm.
And it can not happen too, right? Like
That part.
processing can cannot ever
That part.
happen,
Right.
right?
That part. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, so we have our subconscious mind that's programmed through our early childhood experiences, and we have
Hmm.
trauma.
Yep.
So that also is subconscious within us, right?
Mhm.
How powerful is our subconscious in our lives? I know you said it governs 95% of our actions, right? So can you
Absolutely.
talk about that and like how does it respond? How does it speak to us?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
all of that.
So our subconscious, like you said, Miss Leigh, our subconscious mind is super, super powerful. It runs 95% of the program. So it doesn't respond to logic. It responds to energy, repetition, emotions, symbols, and belief systems. That's why so many people feel stuck cognitively, even though they know better cognitively, they're still stuck. Because what they're trying to do is change thoughts up here when it has
Mm,
nothing to do with this logical functioning of our brain. It's just an old programming. We're basically, most of us are stuck in old programming. But the beautiful part about this, Leigh, is that we can heal, we can rewire our brain. And you can either rewire it or, like how you talk about, doing it from the start and with children and helping them basically not program these let's say, belief systems that work against us.
mm,
This can be done through somatic healing. It can be done through storytelling, inner child work, visualization, so many different ways that we can basically learn to heal our bodies, which I think is a big thing because oftentimes that's what the mental health world is missing, this aspect of healing our body. We're
mm,
so focused on the mind when the mind is only this small portion of why we suffer as human beings.
mm,
Mhm.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I love that you said, like, how the subconscious speaks to us in symbols and repetition and emotion and imagery, because that's exactly how storytelling um,
Mhm.
speaks to us as well. And so that would mean that the storytelling speaks directly to the subconscious because it speaks its language, right?
Absolutely.
So if the subconscious speaks in symbols and 95% of our life is governed by that, then using stories that communicate healing messages in the language of the subconscious isn't just
Absolutely.
nice. It's not just nice. It's
Mhm.
strategic and it's transformational, right? So
Mhm. Mhm.
that's the place where our work intersects, and that's what we're going
Yeah,
to be talking more about today. So what I
absolutely.
see is
Can I?
that Go ahead.
I was gonna mention one more thing that
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
absolutely right. Stories, books, and films, they bypass our logical brain and speak directly to our subconscious mind. So you're absolutely right. There's a great quote. It says, "If your subconscious mind is your a garden, your thoughts and emotions and experiences are the seed." So we basically have the opportunity to release things, feel things that no longer serve us by storytelling. And in fact, acting and film is one of those great ways that a lot of people don't know that's really helpful for people that have trauma, is to basically, so to speak, play another role. Because within that, you'll see that how this role we're playing isn't really something that is concrete. It allows us to exercise our authenticity. Storytelling allows us to tap into our subconscious and imaginative brain. So I really, really, again, I told you that I really love what you do because it does have this right-brained way to release things that don't serve us, to heal our bodies and heal our minds.
So, and not just in like watching movies or reading books, but telling stories yourself too, like expressing your own creativity or um, not necessarily telling the story of this happened to me, like which
Yeah,
can be very helpful, right?
yeah,
But just being creative in some
yeah,
way
yeah.
that's, doesn't even have to be like in any way that you feel related to,
Mhm.
some trauma or wound or whatever thing you're trying to heal. It's just whatever wants to come out of me.
Absolutely.
What's coming out. And like only later could you maybe look back and be like, oh, well, that's related somehow to,
Yeah,
you know, what I
yeah.
went through or am going through, or, or maybe not, you don't know. And
Absolutely. Well,
you move on.
I think most of it will be related, right? I think our
Definitely.
logical brain only compets like just a small portion of what our instinct brain and our emotional brain are capable of doing. And I think we've gotten away from it in society, of realizing how powerful and intuitive our instinct and our emotional brain is, which is basically the limbic system as well as the reptilian brain, is a lot more powerful than our thinking brain is.
Yeah.
Mhm,
I
mhm.
found that some stories that I've written like have come true in a certain sense.
Yeah, that's
Or,
interesting.
or yeah, I don't want to go off topic too much, but I
That's,
am working on a screenplay. It's kind of on the back burner for now, but I've been writing it for years. And
mhm,
it's based on a true story of a friend of mine, but it's fictionalized. So I've taken his story and completely just downloaded it, through me, through these
yeah,
characters and the story
yeah,
that wants to come through me. And so one of the main character has panic attacks. And
hmm,
I had no experience with that when I was writing that until 3 years ago. I started having panic attacks. And I wrote this before
mhm,
that happened.
mhm, mhm.
And so then I went through this whole journey of learning how to heal myself from that. And now I have this deeper understanding of what the character needs to go through, which I have a plan to talk about that at the end, just, reference it. But yeah,
Yes.
it's pretty wild.
Mhm, mhm. And I have to literally hold myself back now because I will geek out. I will totally geek out on this, but
Yeah,
I'll just say a quick thing,
yeah,
it's always fascinated about what comes first, the chicken or the egg, right? And so, majestically or spiritually, did a part of me already know this was going to happen?
right.
Or did, like kind of Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about, did I start creating these neural pathways and this could have manifested this in the future? To be honest, we don't know. I love this philosophical question, though. It's
Yeah,
goes pretty deeply. It does.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
so fascinating.
Yes.
So, to get a little bit back on track,
Hmm.
talking about the subconscious and using stories to speak the language of the subconscious, what I see is that we have two very powerful opportunities to use
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
And one of them is when we have young children
Yeah.
between the ages of 0 and 7, whose subconscious is still being programmed as we speak. We can use stories to help implant positive, helpful seeds in their brains that give them less to unlearn later in life. Not that we know everything, but we're wise. We have experience. There are things that we know and we can share with them. And I find that stories are a way to reach underneath the mind and be able to live with inside you, so that the lesson can come from within. Because if I were to sit here and be like, Alex, you should do this, and this is the way that life works, you'll be like, okay, whatever. But if I tell you a story and there's something in there that resonates within you, and you put those pieces together, that's going to stay with you. So one of the things that I used to do when my daughter was little at night is tell her bedtime stories, which most people do, right? But I would tell her these, like, we called them invisible stories because they didn't exist. So I would just make them up on the spot. It wasn't like a real book we could read. And, sometimes they were silly and funny and like based on something that happened in the day, just to kind of make her laugh or whatever. But, when I would actually just, make one up, I always had this intention in my mind to kind of craft something within that story that would plant something positive in her mind, so that when she would then drift off to sleep, it would be there and it could bloom and grow, or whatever it would do inside of her. So that's where one of my first children's book came from, was from one of those invisible stories. And I have others, but I'll get into that later. So that's the first place that we can use stories, which is when the subconscious is being programmed. And then, 7+, we have, older kids and then adults who have inner children. And they also have resistance, much more resistance to being told, this is what you should think, and this is what I believe is right, And so, and they may not even be consciously aware of, well, that's what the subconscious is, right? Like, it's underneath your conscious, so you aren't aware of those things. So I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you work with the adults to help them unlearn those kinds of things, how to connect with their inner children, and talk about stuff that they inherited.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I want to give a little fun fact. I'm a fun fact giver, so everyone forgive me in advance. That frequency we were talking about, that from 0 to 7 that we vibrate in through those ages, right before we go to sleep, we're also vibrating at that frequency, right? And so this is a powerful, powerful way to reprogram the subconscious mind if you're already an adult. So it's really not too late. That's what I want to really encourage people. And even if you got some quote unquote bad wiring when we were children, you still have the opportunity to rewire. The system is always looking to heal itself. It just needs the right environment to do so. So I wanted to let everybody know that. A couple different ways that I help my clients unlearn these survival patterns and unconscious belief systems that they hold is basically by discovering whatever unconscious belief systems that may be sitting in their subconscious mind. We only see the world through belief systems. We do not see the world through reality. Okay. So the only world we'll ever experience is the world based on our own belief systems. So if I unconsciously feel like, an example of this is if I unconsciously feel like I'm responsible for other people's feelings, what I will do is walk around suppressing my emotions based off, because I don't want someone else to be triggered, right? And it's really that my life is governed by that belief system. Another powerful one that I'm sure I can step on toes with is the belief system around money. Many of us believe we have to work hard to get money. And that's a belief system. And as long as we believe it, we will have to work hard to get money. Or money is scarce. That's another one. That's a belief system. It is not the truth. They're very, very small universal truths in the world. And again, we are governed by these belief systems. So one thing I do is I help clients uncover those unconscious belief systems. And we bring them to the surface and discover new belief systems that actually fit, that we get to actually choose today versus it being chose for us in the past, if that makes sense. Another way that we can discover these unconscious survival patterns is by becoming aware of our triggers. Our triggers are key to our healing, right? And the word trigger simply just means memory. And so whenever I speak with clients, I let them know that most of the times we aren't responding from the present moment. We're actually responding from the past, right? And a way to kind of get in there and see what these unconscious blueprints or imprints that are on our body is to listen to our body. So an example of this could be a client comes in because they're triggered because of X, Y, and Z. So what I do is I help them identify where are you feeling that in your body. Okay, so I'm feeling it in my stomach. Okay, what emotion is that? It's shame. Okay, what thoughts are attached to it, right? What narrative is attached to it? I'm not enough. Something's wrong with me. I'm not good enough. Okay, so I help them float back to the first time that they may have ever felt that feeling. And what we'll discover that may be 5-year-old you inside of you holding those big feelings, internalizing what mom said, internalizing what dad said. That may be 13-year-old you that is operating from a middle school or a preteen that, got our feelings hurt or bullied at that age. So our system is super, super intelligent. And I cannot say enough that the body keeps the score, right? And so by becoming aware, reconnecting with our bodies, reconnecting with our emotions, we get to kind of see where this blueprint originated from. And until we do that, we will be unconsciously triggered by everything in our conscious and not conscious, but present environment today. And so I hope that makes sense. We are not
Yeah.
responding from the present, we are responding from the past.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I saw something, a quote floating around Instagram the other day. It was like, if you don't heal your trauma, it will raise your kids.
Yep. And it does. It has
Yeah.
been.
I was
It's
like,
the truth.
wow,
Yep.
that's a powerful statement.
It's the truth. It's the truth.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Good, good.
Okay, so we have conscious parenting of kids when
Yep.
they're young, right? Then we have our inner reparenting.
Good.
And so whether you're raising a child or you're healing your own inner one, stories are an access point, right? Where what's important about that and about a good therapist is
Mhm.
that stories and therapies don't demand change from us, they invite it.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because in both cases, if we want our internal landscape to be a positive one, we need safety,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And so I
Absolutely.
wanted to talk about the importance of safe containers for emotion.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about how the subconscious speaks to us through emotions.
Yeah, yeah. So our emotions literally shape everything. They create our whole life. We are ran by our emotions. So think about it. The only reason why we want that good job or the only reason why we want that perfect relationship is so I can feel something internally. The only reason why I don't want to publicly speak or get on an airplane is because I want to avoid that fear that's inside of me. So we're all really governed by our emotions. They're literally the most important thing in our life. Our emotions aren't logical. They live in a different place in our brain called the limbic system, as I spoke about earlier, which is
Mm-hmm.
not a cognitive function. It's a thinking. I mean, it's not a cognitive, which means thinking. It is an emotional thing. It lives in a different place in our brain. And because of this, many of us have never truly felt through our past pains or our traumas. So we're walking around, so to speak, with a bunch of unprocessed emotions living within our bodies. So again, our emotions are a part of that 95%. The unprocessed emotions are a part of that 95%. And they dictate where we go. They dictate what we do. Um, And again, many of us have many unfinished arousal cycles that are waiting to be processed in our system, and trauma basically lying dormant within our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And just to make sure that I'm clear, because I often kind of just start talking and I want to be clear when I'm saying it, unprocessed emotions lead to trauma. Right. And so the more unprocessed
Mm-hmm.
emotions I have, it turns into stored trauma. So
Huh,
these words are really all interchangeable at the end of the day. Too much unprocessed emotions will become stored trauma.
huh, huh.
That makes sense. Hmm.
Definitely interesting. Okay.
Absolutely, absolutely. And a side note here, this is the number one reason, I may step on some toes here too, for disease. So when we talk about autoimmune disease, cancers, many mental health illnesses, they're all a part of unprocessed emotions and trauma stuck within our bodies. And so this is why I believe it's important to go back and feel through unprocessed grief and trauma from our childhood. So
Mm-hmm.
many adults I work with are still stuck in a childhood stories that they were not allowed to feel. And so I'm super, super passionate about going back and basically processing through that energy, feeling through it, not necessarily thinking through it, but feeling through it.
Yeah, and in order to do that, you need to feel safe to do
That's
so,
it.
right?
That's
Because it's,
so important.
yeah.
So important that.
Um,
Mhm.
I wanted to share a little story about when I was 14. I remember writing in my diary that like I felt like I had lost it when I put it in
Mm,
quotes. I didn't really know what to call it, but it was like my zest for life and my excitement and connection with something greater than me. And
mm,
I just felt like numb a lot of the time, just like the same every day. I didn't feel happy. I didn't feel sad. It just was like, okay, another day. And luckily at that time, I had this enough awareness to realize that, well, if I wanted to be able to feel those good feelings, so called
mm,
good, I needed to allow myself to also feel the bad ones, so called bad ones.
mm,
So what I did was I turned to movies, I turned to TV,
mm,
and I watched everything and anything that would make me feel something. And it was what allowed me to then reconnect with myself, and in a safe way, a little
yeah.
removed from me way, I was able to, it would bring me to tears, or it would excite
Mm,
me, or whatever it was. And I think that that was where my journey began with this, with
mm,
storytelling.
mm,
So emotions don't just, they don't go away if we ignore them, right? So they just go
mhm,
underground. And story is a way for us to allow them to resurface gently, safely. And this brings me to my next question, because I'm watching a show, or I'm reading a book or something, and it brings me to tears or moves me in some way, and I'm not necessarily thinking, oh, this is healing from when that kid threw that football in my face, and I
mhm,
was, afraid to cry in front of him, but it is, right?
mm.
So, I mean, I think. And so my question to you is, can we heal from something even when we're not consciously aware of it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. One, I want to just say that I absolutely love the intuition that you had at the age of 14 to do that. Huge, huge, huge. Because your 14-year-old self knew something that our emotions are the most important aspect of our lives, legitimately. So I love that. But absolutely, you do not need to know why we are crying or why this energy is coming up in order to heal. So here's a go, another one of my fun facts. Your limbic system, which is also known as your emotional brain, is 200 million years older than your thinking brain. So I just want to let that kind of
Wow.
like fit in and really, really think about it, right?
Wow.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, yeah. This is why it's so hard to use words sometimes to explain what we're feeling, right? Because your emotional brain is based off of instinct, it's based off of survival and intuition, authenticity. Your thinking brain is not. It's not. So I often say that it's more important to feel through something than it actually is to think through it. The thinking part is just for semantics. It's just for to say, okay, I put the story together, right? Which don't get
Mhm.
me wrong, I'm not gonna like discredit that all altogether. It's important sometimes. But if I don't know cognitively why this energy is coming up, the best thing I could do is just let it come up. The truth is healing happens from feeling and not thinking.
Mhm.
So the brain is really like when we're watching a movie or something like that, or reading a book, or watching a film, listening to a song, the brain is very good at generalizing. So it can activate unprocessed energy from what it sees, right? And when it moves, that in itself is healing. When energy starts to move through our system, that's what healing is. It's trying to complete this cycle that never got a chance to complete, right? Michael Singer, he does a great job talking about this. He talks about subscars, and this is I think, a yogi language. And if we can just imagine that we all have these little energy bubbles sitting inside of us that hold old energy that have not been processed. Um, Dr. Joe Dispenza calls this emotional residue as well. So whenever something hits one of those energy bubbles, we get this burst of emotional residue that comes up. And what normally happens is that we turn our thinking brain on and say, well, why am I crying? What is going on? People are going to look. This is going to happen. This is just a movie. This is just a story. Stop it. All of that good stuff, right? And that is what actually blocks healing, right?
Mhm.
Again, your body knows exactly what it needs to do in order to heal. Unfortunately, it is our thinking brain that stops that process from happening. So, if I had to answer your question and put it all in a nutshell, it's actually more important to feel than it is to think about why I am trying to heal. Um, Again, the subconscious mind does not need logic in order to release emotions. It just needs us to stop analyzing in order for that
Mhm.
to happen.
Mhm.
Story time, films, and symbols, they can reach inside of us and stir up something and get energy moving, which helps us release. We may not know why we're crying, but the body does. And I can't say enough that the body keeps the score.
Mhm.
So absolutely, absolutely. Love, love, love. Yep.
Yeah, so you talked about how healing is like a release of the bubble, a release of the
Mm-hmm.
energy. Um, and I guess I wanted to say, what does healing actually mean to you? Like, am I letting something go, or like, yes, like in a certain sense, right? But what else is
Mm-hmm.
going on inside of
Mm-hmm.
me? Do
Mm-hmm.
you
Absolutely.
feel?
Yeah, I say it and I say it all the time. Healing just means coming home to yourself. It's realizing that beneath the surf or then beneath the surface of these programs, these unconscious belief systems that we were given, our true self is still there. Our authenticity is still there. And the more that we allow this energy to get released, the more our true self starts to emerge. The more that we're not afraid to speak our truth, the more that we're not living within these confounds of these belief systems that were given to us. So healing is just about, coming home to yourself and being authentic. One thing that I'm super, super passionate about with my clients is helping them see that they're not broken. That your system just did what it needed to do in order to survive, and now we just want to what's the saying? Unlearn and relearn. And this again allows our true authentic self to start emerging. So yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's not about like getting rid of anything, right? Like it's about
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
reconnecting with
Yeah,
yourself and integrating,
that's
not
the word.
not like pushing
That's
away,
the word.
Yeah.
So we have people like Carl Jung that really talks about individuation, which means to become whole. We have Dick Schwartz with internal family systems, and he uses the word integration,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so the idea is that once we become aware of these different parts that we've suppressed, or these different parts that we cultivated out of survival, the idea is to integrate them back into the system. I always say that. Our job is to be whole and not perfect. And so I'm really passionate about getting off from what we call in the psychology world pathologizing ourselves, when really all of us have done a tremendous job in surviving. And so this just means, like you said, integration, individuation, coming home to yourself, realizing that all you need is right inside of you,
Mm-hmm.
beneath the programming, beneath the trauma and all of that stuff.
Yeah, so that's what I try to do with my stories is try to reconnect people with themselves and with
Mhm.
others because it can be, a story from a perspective that you hadn't thought of before and and something that you haven't gone through and that can help connect you with somebody else. So I wanted to come back to on that note talking about like integrating
Yeah.
um, the story that I was telling you about the character who has panic attacks. There is another character in that story that he's always trying to fix or
Mhm.
get to leave, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And what I kind of discovered through writing this, it's not even done yet, but I know what's going to happen is that
Mhm.
there's going to be a part where he says to this character, stay with me.
Hmm.
And that's the moment when they both transform. And because of that, I now use that in my own life when
Love.
if I start to feel uncomfortable, because I had panic attacks 3 years ago, I was
Mhm.
hospitalized for
Wow.
disorder, panic disorder.
Mhm.
Um, and sometimes now I still have these little like echoes. Well,
Mhm.
what if I can't sleep tonight? What if it starts to happen again? And
Yeah.
instead of being like, don't think about that, focus on something positive. Instead, I now, because of this story, this screenplay,
It's
I
perfect.
I imagine that character and I say, stay with me. Stay with me. You're just a little afraid.
That's
And I
powerful.
invite that fear in and I envelop it in love and it goes
Mhm.
away. And
Leigh,
it's just like
that's
it's
that's
so
magic.
powerful for me. It's a
Very.
specific tool that I have learned just from a story, that a fictional story.
Yeah.
So
Lee, that's powerful. I absolutely, absolutely love that. I can just imagine someone's inner child, and it's feeling the shame, it's feeling the fear. And we just say, hey, come here, sit on my lap. I'm not going to leave you. You
yeah,
don't have to stop feeling your big feelings. Um, I always say that there's another thing that resistance equals negative attraction. So anything that we resist persists. And so by welcoming our inner child, welcoming this part of us that has this fear, we're actually more likely to integrate it than we are to avoid it in some way, which will only cause it to come back 10 times
yeah,
worse. I
yeah,
love
yeah.
it. That's
And it
perfect.
works for me because it's a character, it's once removed. It's not me, it's this character that I love because the story I'm telling. And so I'm
Yeah.
alive, like I it allows me to identify and also, I don't know, be one step removed in a certain sense,
And
which is
that,
important for you, right? To go kind of beneath your brain, your resistance to it.
yeah.
So yeah. Oh, sorry, good. Were you
No,
gonna
no,
say?
no. I was going to say what you're describing is something I don't know if you've heard of internal family systems, but by unblending, separating ourselves from whatever this energy, this fear, whatever, it almost allows us to integrate. It's very a conundrum. But
Mm-hmm.
almost thinking of our anxiety, this shame as our little children or this part of this person in our story helps us to be able to deal with it in an easier manner and integrate those parts back in our system. So yes,
Yeah,
I love it.
that's cool. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
a little bit familiar with the family systems. I heard you speak about it on the
yeah.
Beyond 80%.
Hmm.
So yeah, it totally makes sense. And yeah, so just to like wrap things up,
Yeah.
after that story I told about how like I'm able to take this fictional story and then use that and to
Hmm.
as a tool to heal
Yeah.
myself and just kind of move through life. I wanted to just say that give our viewers some ideas of how things that they can do moving forward. I would
Mhm.
say for parents, talking about parents who have young children, um, tell them stories with intentional messages. They don't have to be good, it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
some polished, like
Yeah.
amazing Dr. Seuss or Shel
Mhm.
Silverstein
Mhm.
story. Just like tell your own invisible stories to your kids, like at bedtime, and just practice and be silly and
That's it.
set the intention of, you know, what positive thing can I kind of, send my kid off to sleep with? And I would play with that.
Mhm.
Maybe or affirmations or visualizations, take them through
Yeah.
something like that. And if you need help in that area, I'm here. I have free audio story on my website, encouragethought.org, which is called The Grass Flyer. You can listen to that at bedtime. You can listen to it in car rides. You can listen to it and, set them up with a little downtime if you need some time to, do dishes or whatever. I also have another free audio story called The Thoughtful Thought, which is on YouTube. And a
Mhm.
little side note, I met a woman the other day and she listened to that with her 5-year-old. And her 5-year-old was like, is he invisible? Like, not quite
Mhm.
thinking about the thought, because the thought is the main character of the story. And the mom said to her daughter, do you know what a thought is? And she said, I think. And then she paused and she was like, that's a thought. And so,
Wow.
like, just
I
bringing
love it.
awareness for
Yeah.
a 5-year-old
Love it.
who now can like have awareness that they have thoughts, like that's so powerful, right?
Absolutely.
So you can
Mhm.
access that story. I also have two children's books for sale. One is called The Tiny Girl and the Egg, and that is one of the invisible stories that I told my daughter when she was like
Love
five
it.
years old. And I thought it was good, so I jotted it down, and we ended up turning it into a real book. My daughter is in it. I took photos of her and her friends. And then I also have a book that just came out this past holiday season called To Be a Christmas Tree, which
Mhm.
most people cry when they read or even hear the
Mhm.
synopsis. It touches them and moves them. It's a very, very powerful story. And that's available for sale also. And the exciting news is I'm in pre production on an animated short film, turning that book into a film. So soon, soon, who knows how long it'll take, probably years, but that will be also available to watch. And
Lovely.
yeah, so I'll be making more invisible stories too. Watch my YouTube. But you can find everything at encouragethought.org. And Alex, do you want to talk about maybe some ideas for adults, things that they can do to help rewire
Yeah.
their inner child? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so just, a reminder to adults with children that are 7 and under that that's the most important time of their life, not to put too much pressure on us as it's already there. But it's literally the most important time of their life. So just being cautious about what we tell children, how we react to them, all of that. It's going within their system and they're going to use it as a blueprint for the rest of their lives. So again, no pressure, but I just like to spread information. For my adults, again, the subconscious mind has the ability to be rewired. So, as I mentioned, I go to sleep every night with something playing, whether it's a book, whether it's a YouTube video, something that I want to program within my subconscious mind. The subconscious mind responds to repetition. Okay. This is how come we can't just read a book and then we're all of a sudden healed, right? There has to be a repetition of it, right? So from 0 to 7, you got repetition. That's how come with that stuck so much. So same thing with adults. When we're trying to reach the subconscious mind, remember the repetition. Um, Also remember that your emotions tied with your thoughts are what actually helps us, I don't want to use the word manifest, but rewire. Let me put it that way. Yes, so repetition at night. Um, as well as just being able to release these old stories, these old patterns that we've been holding on to. Um, and awareness, I cannot say enough that awareness is really, really the place that we start at. What are we reacting to? Right? What triggers us? Have we been stuck in certain patterns throughout our life? Do we keep meeting the same people with different faces? These are all keys, right, to our healing. And once we just kind of step back and look at the bigger picture, we're able to see exactly what's been going on. So I want to let everyone know that healing is possible. Returning to your self is possible. We are not stuck. You're not broken. Yeah. Just many of us are just operating from these old programs. So yeah, you can definitely, I have the opportunity to, an honor to train up and coming clinicians. And I just hired 3 more. So I have a total of 7 clinicians that work, that live consciously. They're absolutely phenomenal. So we have many, we don't have a waiting list. So you can, and we don't have a waiting list. We also have multiple availabilities. And all of my clinicians, I teach them kind of this aspect of healing and how to truly heal versus putting a Band-Aid on our trauma issues. And so check our website out. It's www.liveconsciouslypllc.com.
And you're located in Texas, right?
Located in Texas, and we are able to service all of Texas. All of
Okay.
Texas. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
We're
Not
100%
not other
virtual.
states. You can't do other states.
United States, not yet.
Okay.
No, due
Okay.
to licensing reasons, we have to work within our states.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm, mhm, yeah.
All right. Awesome.
Yes.
This is
Thank
so
you.
cool.
Great. Thank you so much, Leigh, for having me. Definitely, I
Yeah.
told you this is outside of my comfort zone, but I am so grateful for the opportunity. I'm big on opportunity, so when I get it, I run with it. So I really appreciate you for giving me this opportunity. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming on,
Mhm.
taking
Absolutely.
the leap.
Yeah, that part. That
Uh,
part.
all right,
Alrighty.
guys. We'll see you next time.
All right.
Bye. Love you.
Bye, everyone.